Welcome to the Kind Heartfulness podcast, exploring the inner reaches of the heart and mind, brought to you by Gomde, Germany-Austria, and your host, Erric Solomon.
Welcome to another episode of the Kind Heartfulness podcast. And as the holidays are soon upon us, many of us are already looking toward the time with both anticipation and sometimes some anxiety, because we're going to have to share meals with our relatives, some of whom may say or do things that frankly push our buttons. And it seems like in the last few years, many of my friends have been telling me they just don't know how to respond when their uncle starts espousing his idiosyncratic political ideas, scientific ideas, and so forth. And so we thought this episode maybe could be about how we can best cope with getting together with our family and friends during the holidays and make the very best use of that time and make it more enjoyable. So today's guest is Birgit Meiche. I can't say that. I'm sorry, my German isn't very good, but she's, many of you know her as Bibi. She's a key member of the team at Germany-Austria, who's also a social worker by trade, and her education and experience is especially towards helping people with mental health issues. So she and I are getting together to discuss how to make the most of the holidays, how to be harmonious so one can enjoy themselves and also everybody else. Let's get right to it. Well, Bibi, hello, and welcome to the Kind Heartfulness podcast.
Hi, Eric. Thanks.
So I'm going to give our listeners a little bit of background about why we're speaking today. They've already heard, I've introduced you already at this point. So you won't hear that part. But I thought one of the big challenges that we all face nowadays at the holidays, I especially hear this from a lot of my friends and people who come to my seminars, is that the holidays are a really challenging time because people have such strong opinions, and it's hard sometimes in families or in friends with friends when somebody starts expressing strong opinions. How do we not all fall back into hardened positions? How do we deal with the holiday dinner party, that kind of thing? And I know for a number of people, this is even a kind of already the idea of the holidays is already starting to cause some stress. So I thought with your background in mental health and social work and also being a Dharma practitioner, it'd be interesting for us to have a conversation as we move into the holidays about this topic. And, how do we deal with our super opinionated uncle who shows up for dinner, maybe has an extra drink and starts just pontificating and saying things that maybe we find offensive or horrific. That kind of. Yeah.
Or how do we act when we had an extra drink?
Well, my advice would be don't do that for the holidays.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah. But anyway, I realize.
No, I mean, it points to the first thing I would say is stay mindful of your mental state, because at least for myself, when I go into friend circles or family circles, sometimes we get highly emotional without even noticing because we're kind of back into our old roles or something like that. I was actually wondering, Eric, when you told me to come with you on the podcast to talk about it, I thought a lot about why is it actually that family triggers us so much, or that coming into family circles is something that seems to be worthwhile to talk about on a podcast. Shouldn't it be the easiest? That's the people we are used to, and they're our parents. They they made us, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they helped us grow and all of that. But somehow it brings up a lot for many people. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. And I think that the biggest challenge with people who we know really, really well, been very intimate with, even now, maybe we don't see them so much because maybe, we don't live with our parents, for example, anymore. Or even if we do, a lot of young people these days don't move out till much later than when I was young. But even if we do, we have some kind of barriers we put in place. But the big thing is that communication is a lot about habits, and some of that's good, and some of that, well, if the habits aren't good habits, then it can go south very easily. And I
Mm.
think the point you're making about mindfulness is really the key for me when I think about being in this situation. For example, by the time you'll hear the listeners hear this, I'll just come back from the United States and have spent time with a bunch of old family and friends, dear family, and uh, I want it to be a really great and memorable experience. So first is I just start by imagining all the ways it can go well and
Mm.
not dwelling. Our normal habit, for example, if we know it's someone tricky, is to already anticipate it not going well or thinking how it cannot go well.
Mm.
So what's the first? So first is just remembering everything we have in common. How there's usually, and although there's many things, there's also love in the relationship, or at least closeness and some kind of intimacy. To remember that, to honor that, and
Mm.
to remember how that feels, and like where in the body is it? Just to bring it forth. So that's the first thing. And maybe you want to add something. I mean, what do you think when you hear me saying that?
I think that that's a way to see where mental health and dharma meets very
Uh-huh.
easily. So bringing up like positive affirmations is definitely something that we know from mental health work, even if we're not Buddhists or we don't know about Buddhist methods. Uh, and it definitely helps to exactly to turn the mind towards something positive or a loving feeling that we have towards the other person. That's a lot what we, here at Gomde, we practice Lojong and Tonglen every Tuesday. For a few years now, we've done that in group practices. And very often, of course, we practice with friends and with family. Definitely, you come across some itchy feelings, things that are not easy. But when you try to develop compassion for someone, then yeah, what do? You try to see the things where you relate to that person lovingly. So either it's a good memory with them or it's gratitude for how they treated you in the past, or it's simply seeing that you are not that different from them. Even if you don't like them that much and even if they have not treated you well,
Mm.
they are still like a sentient being that wishes to be happy and wishes to be free of suffering. I find that that's basically the most you can reduce connection to, but it's quite powerful because in that way we are really all the same. Maybe that goes away from the mental health aspect already a little bit, but it definitely helps us to develop compassion and empathy for the other person. I would say from a mental health point of view, I really like the method of nonviolent communication that helps us to hear empathetically what the other person is saying, while they might be saying outrageous things or things we don't want to hear. Everyone is basically communicating needs, human needs or needs that all sentient beings have. And when we learn how to listen to that instead of, the superficial chatter that is going on.
Mhm.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, I think sometimes when I'm sitting there and I'm listening to uh, someone I know quite well uh, start to talk about something that actually I totally disagree with and a little bit pushes my buttons. Like I might even be thinking, it's people saying things like that that causes all these problems in the world, right? That's one thing that has come up for me. I'm a little embarrassed to admit, but it has. But the way I've learned to deal with that is to look past the, like you were saying, the superficial chit chat or pattern of the conversation, and see that person is saying that because actually they want to be happy. They want the world to be well. They want to be well in it. Um,
Exactly.
even if it's like wiping out a whole class of individuals from the face of the earth or something totally outrageous, right? But
Mm,
there still is this behind it is this desire to be well and avoid suffering, right?
mm,
And when I see it that way, I actually do feel compassion because all of a sudden it's like, wow, this really sort of horrific, I think violent, perhaps even racist thing they're saying is actually motivated by something very, very tender and basic. This
mm,
wish to avoid suffering, this wish to be well. And
mm,
even more to the point is seeing then how unlikely it is that even if things were to go that way, it would achieve anything like what they think, right?
mm.
That in my experience, for example, the world doesn't generally get better the more violently you behave. That's
Mm.
my experience. And,
You know, it's funny that you say that because while you were talking,
yeah,
I was thinking what our listeners might think listening to you. And a thought came up like, well, yeah, but if people say racist things, outrageous things, we should just stop them. And, like, why would we even entertain that conversation or things like that? And that's a tricky question. But as you just said, from violence, usually things don't get better. So why do we want to stay in conversation
well,
with people that,
I don't think we necessarily have to stay in conversation, but maybe there are some skillful things we can do. And when we get back out of our, like, what's going on at first, it's that's racist. I need to stop it. This is unacceptable. It's actually, if we really look closely, suddenly our ego is raising its ugly head, right?
mm,
Yeah, there's something good to it, of course, because, generally racism or advocating violence isn't so healthy, but there somehow we're getting on our high horse. So if we stay with, oh, this person wants to be happy, this person
mm,
actually thinks that this is going to make them feel better, the world be a better place. Now, is there some way you can just without condoning, just changing the subject on going, ask them a personal question about their lives. So how's your sister doing these days? Or
that's it.
your kid might, is going to college. I heard that. So you must be so proud. I mean, just something to we're not going to fix the world's problems while eating a Sunday roast. You know,
Mm.
it's not how it just isn't I mean, that'd be good if we could, but it's unlikely at the holiday dinner that it's going to be solved. But
What we can solve is like we can protect our heart and the heart of the other person. We can
that's
try not to
that's true.
create a bigger mess
That's
in the
right.
world.
That's right. And actually, what's funny, BB, is because I have a bad habit of being argumentative. Um, it's even how I learn things. Sometimes it's probably something I learned, especially in Silicon Valley, where you just, you thrash an idea together with your friends,
Mm,
colleagues, and until
the best idea, whatever one's left alive at the end of the, conversation or whatever. Maybe that's the one you should implement. But if I'm honest with myself, a lot of times I've learned things more from people I disagree with than people I agree with. So I can do that. But what I know is most people don't like that. Okay. Most people don't like having arguments. Um, and so you can do it in special situations, like when you're solving technical problems in Silicon Valley, maybe, but you can't do that. And at the holiday dinner table, people don't understand it. So what I found, what's interesting is when don't push right back at the person and instead find a way to redirect the conversation to something we both are interested in talking about, a lot of times they notice what's going on and they're impressed.
Hmm.
It's not, I've actually had people later say to me, thank you so much.
For diverting the the
Yeah,
terror that was about to happen. Mm.
yeah. It's not like the other person's stupid. They knew what I was doing. I mean, but it is nice. I was finding something we have in common to talk about, and they like that, right? So
Yeah.
uh, and the other thing is sometimes you just let people wear themselves out. They can just say whatever they say. I mean, it's if would like to be a healthy spiritual being who's making progress on whatever path you're following, this could be your opportunity. Why do I say that? Because rather than falling prey to my habit, just letting it go, not doing my part in that dance. Takes two to tango. I don't know if they have that in German, but you
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that in English, it takes two to tango. It's not being two, you know?
Hmm.
And then it becomes my practice to bring it back to what you said of mindfulness.
Exactly. I was actually sorry to if I'm interrupting, but
No, please.
yeah, listening to you, I was thinking these two things. Well, first of all, thinking about sentences in advance that you could use. That's actually
Yes,
something
yes,
a good preparation,
yes.
same as reaffirming or same as affirmations or kind of fantasy journeys into what we like about the other person, what we have in common. We can also prepare ourselves for, okay, where do I go when things get south? Um, and have some sentences prepared, like especially my generation of women these days, they have to be prepared for when are you gonna have a family? Where's the boyfriend at? Or things like that. And so maybe it's totally valid to anticipate that and think about, okay, when this question pops up, I'm gonna say something that maybe diverts the topic or just clearly states, hey, there's my border. I don't like to talk about that. Or, I would prefer if this Christmas we just let it be or, things
Yeah.
like that. And the other thing you were saying was,
No, that's a
okay,
very excellent point. Yes. Another thing, sorry.
the other thing you were talking about was the moment when we know, okay, wow, now I want to react. But we have to see that moment. And usually, at least in my case, when I'm with family,
Yeah.
I'm so distracted. Much easier than in work situations or
Mhm.
in daily life. Because, as I said before, I think we fall into habitual patterns. And so I think especially in the holiday season or when we have these encounters, it's very good to practice what you like to call where is it in your body or
Mhm. Mhm.
body
Yeah.
mindfulness.
Absolutely.
I once had a psychologist recommend having a little stone in your shoe
Hmm.
so that whenever you you maybe get distracted or triggered, you would, just move a little around in your shoe and you'll feel it and you'll have a sensation that you can hook yourself onto or some things that we like to use in DPD, how is it called? Behavioral therapy,
Uh-huh.
is maybe using another skill, we call it, like a rubber band around your hand.
Yeah.
That's maybe a strong sensation that you can
Yeah.
use to not get distracted, diverted in your thinking, in your feeling.
Actually, these are the
Um,
kinds of things they even have in the traditional texts. Usually it's to remind you to practice during the day. So you might put something that's a little tight, a piece of clothing that's a little tight, or something on your finger, or something in your shoe. All these kinds of things actually are also existed as kind of practical ways to sort of remind you during the day, don't completely lose your mindfulness. Don't
yeah,
completely lose the thread of the practice. So this is marvelous what
exactly.
you're saying. I think the thing that's it is about learning to drop in the body and notice, like we're too much in our head and thinking about how we're thinking rather than noticing how we're feeling. Because a lot of times when we want to interrupt the obnoxious relative, it's we're trying to make our discomfort go away,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? It's nothing to do
Mm.
with fixing the world, fixing them, stopping them from saying these horrible things. It's suddenly we're uncomfortable and it's unconscious. It's like boosh, the whole like a rush of energy comes, and you say like with family is where it's really, really because of because the habits sometimes go back to before we even can remember, right? It's like the energy starts moving in the body and just takes over, and we're the lunatic, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing I want to say is after you first, in preparation for seeing all your old karmic tripping buddies, your family, that first is to think of all the things you have in common. But now that you've done that, now that you have this basis of love and good feeling, is there are certain ways it could go wrong. So now imagine one of them. Maybe it's your mother likes to say a certain thing that always gets you. Imagine saying, like, when are you gonna have a child? Whatever it is, right? And
Mm.
and where do you feel that in the body?
Mm.
Get used to feeling it rather than reacting, just noticing, just staying with the feeling,
Mm.
right? And now out of noticing, we can choose to act. Then it has possibility of being wisdom. When it's reacting, it's just a habit.
Mm.
Even if what your way of reacting sometimes is beneficial, it's still a habit. Even seeming beneficial things, when they're habit, maybe not always so helpful just to always be habitual.
And I feel that that's also what makes it so tiresome, what makes these kind
Yeah,
of gatherings so tiresome, that
yeah,
we react so habitually
yeah,
all of the time.
yeah,
It's really tiring. I was just
yeah,
imagining what you were saying, how it feels, to drop into the body and be with the discomfort. Oh, that feels really, really wholesome. And that feels
yeah.
like I can do it an evening long without getting completely wiped out afterwards,
Yes,
because I'm basically with my basic goodness all of the time. So
that's a very
then
good way to say.
then
Very
it's
good
a
way to.
wonderful opportunity.
But I want to just add something, BB, because people might who haven't heard this before might be going, oh, but I can't stay with that feeling. That feeling's rage, right? Or that feeling is it could be something quite strong.
Mm.
The thing is the story in our head about the rage, which is all the justification, why we're right, why our rage is justified. I'm sure your rage is justified, but staying with the story makes it unbearable. But if we just stay with the feeling of rage without judging, without trying to fix it, without trying to turn it into something spiritually appropriate, like love, just let it be rage. Just give the rage the space to be. The rage just is energy. And when it's just energy, then it can be something that wakes you up. It doesn't have to feel bad anymore. It could feel good. It could be blissful even, because the story of the rage is no longer holding you. And instead, it's just the energy. The energy. And this takes a little practice, but it's not like some Buddhist practice you spend your whole lifetime on. This is something you can get. Once you get the smell of it, it becomes easier and easier and easier. I mean, being perfect at it, of course, is difficult, but being good at it is not so difficult.
It also reminds me again of the 4 steps of nonviolent communication, where the first step is to make an observation. For example, my grandmother is making this and that statement. Yeah. That's basically just an observation. Yeah. Then you name the feeling. It makes me feel angry. Yeah. And then you go one step deeper and you ask yourself, what is the need behind that feeling? And the need being basically like a human value that we have, being fulfilled or not fulfilled. Let's say it's the feeling is anger, and the need behind it might be security, because I want to be secure. And when A or Z says these things, I feel angry because I feel threatened and I want to feel secure. And needing to feel secure is something very, human, general. It's not, and it's not connected to the story. It's not connected to the conversation anymore, to the outrageous things they said or whatever. It's just a feeling in the body. And then you can drop into the body and feel, where is this need of feeling secure?
Two ways to bring it together. That's beautiful.
And then the fourth step of nonviolent communication is to make a wish, or to ask something either of yourself to yourself or the other person. So let's say I want security, I need security, then I make the wish to myself, oh, may I be able to protect my boundaries. Or you could tell your relative, or when you say that, I feel really threatened and it makes me feel like I need more security. Could you maybe say that in a different way? Don't say it. Or we just find another way to tell them to please don't continue the conversation, like we said before. Ask them about their kid in high school or whatever. Yeah. But this just made click in my mind, like, oh, these two practices somehow come together.
Yeah,
come together.
I think the nice thing is you've given a framework, one way you can get yourself to come into the body. I think the key thing is to notice what's happening with oneself. And when you do that, then the habitual reaction, whatever it might be, it is interrupted. Then you can choose to act. Acting is very different than reacting.
Totally.
And in most cases, I'm going to say in family situations, maybe just not do too much. Just be quiet.
Yeah, I have had that a lot as advice, to be honest. Just, keep it to yourself. And it's actually good advice. I wasn't so fond of it when I first got it, but
no, me either.
But shutting up sometimes really does the job.
Yeah, I think it's this thing with family in particular. We feel I don't want to have to be subjected to this, and it's like we're feeling attacked in some way, and now we're going to make it stop. And this is all just very like primal reptile brain type. It's. I think the other thing is to sometimes it's just sit there while this is going on. As you breathe in, you think to the other person, may you be free from suffering. As you breathe out, may you be happy. This maybe is a little bit distracting you from the actual things they're saying, but
Which might
also,
be good.
yes, right? It has that, but also it's a way to just turn this into something that's just incredibly beneficial. Maybe it's beneficial for them, that's possible, but definitely beneficial for us, because rather than our own kind of inappropriate habitual response, we have very basic. As we breathe in, may you be free from suffering. As we breathe out, may you be happy. And you can even see, if you want, warm light going from your heart and enveloping them and soothing them and healing them while they prattle on about whatever silly thing they're going on about. And just stay, breathe in. Because, actually, you're probably at a table with others as well, and they can all be listening and interacting, and you can just be doing this very, very simple, basic practice. May you be free from suffering. May you be happy.
Just make sure your face doesn't show it. I just think of myself sitting at the dinner table with like this holy moly face. Like,
Well,
oh,
that's maybe not
I'm
so.
just meditating here.
No, just got whatever face you have is fine. Don't make a special meditation. People are really funny. It's like you'd see this when Pacha Rinpoche and I were doing our book tour. We stopped telling people we are going to meditate. We just call it an exercise. Because as soon as we say, let's do a meditation, everybody sits and like moves specially and this. But if we just say we're doing an exercise and nobody does anything, right? But we do this to ourselves too. So I'm not saying you have to sit in any particular posture or have some special attitude. Just very, very lightly, simply do this exercise of when you breathe in, think, may you be free from suffering. And as you breathe out, may you be really, truly happy. And don't think you have to assume some posture mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. It doesn't matter. Just do it. Just do it. And then your expression will be quite natural.
Eric, that actually brings another topic to mind, which is spiritual bypassing, because a little bit
A good one.
of what you're
Yeah.
of what you're suggesting, it can be used as spiritual bypassing as well, or let's call it, sweeping uncomfortable feelings under the rug. Oh, may you be free from suffering while I actually don't like you at all. So how can we make sure that we stay authentic in this?
Yeah, the first thing is not to deny how we feel. I was suggesting after we notice how we feel, rather than our reaction, our action can be this. That's very, very different. Spiritual bypassing is things like, I want to rip your effing head off, but instead I'm going to pretend. Okay. Now, if you're about to do something violent, a little spiritual bypassing is quite okay. Okay. But in general, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's not really spiritual bypassing when you're working directly with the object that's provoking you. In other words, your grandmother was your example, is saying something that's provoking you. If you're wishing her to be well, wishing her to be free from suffering, that's a little different.
Yeah, that's again where the whole preparation comes in,
Yes.
because we have prepared for being triggered before we even went to that dinner. So we already have some notion of love for them in our back pocket that we can grab when we actually don't love them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And but that's true. What is practice for? Practice isn't for having better and better experiences while you sit on your meditation cushion. Practice is for life. Practice is for what happens every day. And so, this is This is we're practicing so that when we get to a situation that's normally quite tricky for us, we're able to transform it. It may even become, instead of a source of discomfort and displeasure, might even have something joyful about it when we discover, hey, I'm not
Mm.
falling prey to my normal habits, or I didn't fall prey every time, or at least one time I didn't, right? That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's something to celebrate. You should feel good about it. Again, our tendency is to think about the 10 times we failed. But whereas we used to fail every time, now we're starting to notice, and sometimes we don't fail. That's wonderful. That's something to feel good about.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, actually talking to you right now and just imagining all kinds of situation make me make me feel joyful.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's. I hope that's true for not just you. Uh,
Yeah.
that I do too. I feel joyful when I talk like this, and when I like think about going to see uh, my relatives and friends. And I do start to feel joyful when I approach it this way. Even I know a couple
Mm.
of them might sometimes there are things that it's not that they're tricky. Our communication is tricky.
That's exactly the next point I was hoping to talk to you about because while we have been talking in a way as if the other person were the problem,
Yes.
what is really true is that our reactions are the problem, isn't it?
Well, in fact, look, you know, once in a while we can make a difference in the world. It's true. I mean, it's not completely impossible. People do make a difference sometimes in the world. But really we're always thinking that the resolution to our problems is somewhere out there. If I just get the right circumstances together, or I get the right stuff together, or the right people together, everything in the world will fall into place and be wonderful again. And that isn't what Buddhist teachings say, really. They say the only place of resolution is within our own mind, within our own heart, within our own being, the essence of our being. That's where you find the resolution. And so, of course, that doesn't mean, like Shanti Davis says, if there's something to do to solve a problem, by all means, you should do it. Doesn't mean that we don't ever engage with the world, but we stop having this expectation that we can fix it,
Hmm.
or that the solution will be found in external circumstances or external conditions, and start realizing that most of the problem is inside each of us. So I can't do very much about you, BB, although I would like to try.
You try very hard
Yeah,
often.
sometimes. But the only person I can really do anything about, and even there it's questionable, is me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the point.
How hard it is to change ourselves. It's so interesting that we think we can change others when we don't even like to change ourselves, no?
Well said. Well said. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, wow. I'm looking forward to some uncomfortable conversations now.
Well, that's
Put
great.
putting all of that into practice. So what we just talked about was get prepared.
Hmm.
Like think about the things you love about the other person, maybe good memories, delve a little bit into your memory box of feeling love and feeling loved.
And what you have in
Then
common.
what you have in common,
Yeah.
exactly what you have in common. Then prepare for, let's call it quick exits. uh,
Yeah.
some sentences that you can use to protect yourself or leave the conversation or divert it into
Hmm.
another realm.
Hmm.
We talked about mindfulness, and especially we talked about mindfulness of bodily sensations
Yes.
and using those in situations where you might become reactive instead of acting.
Allowing yourself to feel how you feel without feeling like you have to fix yourself, but not chasing the story about the feeling, but just
Hmm.
staying with the feeling, letting it open up and be curious.
Yeah,
Normally, when we feel angry, we feel we have to chase the reasons for anger. We're afraid to just stay with that feeling, the sensation of anger. But actually, there's no harm there. The harm is in the story. The harm is in habitually reacting to the anger. Anyway, yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
then we talked about little tricks that apparently come up in the traditional texts already, and I
Yeah.
know them from DPD, from skills training. So
What's
having some kind
EPD?
DPD, it's called, I don't know if that's the German or the English
Yeah.
abbreviation.
Yeah.
Dialectical behavioral therapy.
Okay.
Well, I think it has another abbreviation in
Yeah.
English. Anyway, so
Oh,
having some reminders with you that keep you on track, that remind you to practice. A
mm.
friend recently mentioned she uses big earrings when she's with people that trigger her, so that the big earrings, they can be kind of annoying.
Yeah.
They hang in your
Yeah.
clothes and they
Yeah.
pull on your ear. So whenever the earring does that, she gets reminded of, hey, I wanted to stay mindful. I wanted to practice in that situation. So
That's a great one.
yeah, so we talked about rubber bands, stones in shoes, all of this stuff, and so they keep us mindful, they keep us aware of what's
Nowadays, you
going
can
on.
put you put your phone on vibrate, and you have it in your pocket, and you have a whole bunch of little vibrations that go on at random times during the day.
Yeah,
That's
well, that sounds like a good trick, but also people might think something else is going on.
oh yeah, oh because the vibrate everyone can hear. Yeah, it's too bad you can't set your vibrate to really really minimal, like just a little. zzz, zzz. Anyway, maybe there's some phones let you. So go on. This is great
So
summary so far.
yeah, because I really don't want to forget anything from what we
No, it's
just talked
helping
about.
me.
And then okay, so we're sitting at the table and we've had all that preparation. We are mindful of what's going on, and then we realize we can't really say anything that's really helpful, but we go into working with our own mind. So we go into wishing the other person, or maybe we start with wishing ourselves well and wishing ourselves to be free from suffering. And when we feel nourished again, we go and wish that to the other person. So we stay in connection
Okay.
at the table.
You've added something to my recipe. That's good.
Well, I'm here for the mental health part,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. See, I think that sure. If that could be a really important preliminary. That's a good addition. So what, and yeah, I think that covers it, no?
I think that's what we talked about.
And you know what? The last thing is don't be too hard on yourself. You don't have
Yeah.
to be perfect. But when you manage to not fall into a habit, give yourself a pat on the back. Don't always, um, progress on the spiritual path isn't made through constant failure. It's made by sometimes getting it right.
Hmm.
And so, right, it's so on those rare occasions where we get it right, we should feel good about it. We don't have to put ourselves down. Oh, I only
It's
did it
holiday
once.
season.
Yeah, exactly. Have an eggnog, celebrate. No, so, but only one. So anyway, do they have eggnog in Germany? Or is that some,
Oh, definitely.
yeah, okay.
Eierlikör. Mm.
Oh, all right. So, um, yeah, I think this is good. So I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season. We just thought we'd try doing something topical and appropriate on the Kind Heartfulness podcast for a change. So I hope this was topical and appropriate and helpful. And thank you, BB, so much for agreeing to come on.
Thanks. It was great. Yeah, as I said, I'm I'm really looking forward to those conversations now. Thank you, Eric, for
You're welcome.
that wonderful like hints. Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Well, have a happy holiday.
Happy holiday. Thank you. Thanks for listening. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, we like to invite you to continue the journey into the heart of enlightened mind at gomde.eu.